Loaded, and I do mean loaded episode of Carving Up Live on tap for you guys tonight. Going to start with the Lakers' Game 1 win over the Houston Rockets. Why I was absolutely blown away by the great LeBron James performance against Houston. As for the Rockets, an absolutely embarrassing performance, particularly from a coaching perspective with Ime Udoka. I'll discuss that. Victor Wembanyama, the first playoff game of his career, goes nuts why he's ready to take the Spurs on a deep title run. Discuss that. My Golden State Warriors. Obviously, the season came to an end on Friday night against the Suns. What the future for the franchise might look like and why I think this is potentially Steve Kerr's final season, this past season was at least, with Golden State. Get to that. Also get to the Detroit Pistons, why I was highly concerned with their performance, their loss in Game 1 to the Magic. Why I was blown away by Jayson Tatum, who I think is putting it together the greatest Achilles surgery recovery we've seen by any NBA player in NBA history. Getting into the Dexter Lawrence trade as well from the Giants to the Bengals. Tons to get into on today's episode of Carving Up Live. So let's drop the beat, baby. Here we go. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Alive right here on YouTube, as well as on Facebook, Twitch, X, and on Instagram. I am Bryson Carver. Glad to have you with us on a Monday. Absolutely loaded episode on tap. You heard the rundown. You heard what we're talking about. A little sprinkle in of NFL draft because of the Dexter Lawrence news. We are so packed today, folks, that we don't even have time to get into the A.J. Brown news. And the A.J. Brown story that broke this morning from Adam Schefter saying that, hey, he's going to get traded to New England in all likelihood post June 1st. We'll probably get to that more as we approach, that particular date on the calendar. But tons of NBA playoffs to get into. We'll even touch on some of the series, or at least some of the game ones at the very least, that we're not devoting full segments to. So let's go and get right into the action, starting with the Los Angeles Lakers. But first, right off the bat on today's show, I got to say this because we do have some breaking news coming into Carving Up Live. We have breaking news, okay? According to my sources, and I'm no insider, but according to my sources, I've just been notified. LeBron James is still phenomenal at basketball. That's the breaking news. Not a shock to anybody. LeBron against the Houston Rockets with no Luka Doncic, no Austin Reeves. Show what he did against Houston. 19 points, 8 rebounds, 13 assists, 2 steals. He was 9 of 15 from the field. He hit a three-pointer on 2 attempts. LeBron James controlled that basketball game in every way, shape, and form. When you look at the fact that you got a Luke Kennard going for 25 points, when you got a Marcus Smart going for 15, DeAndre Ayton playing the game that he was out there playing, kind of shocks me, I'm not going to lie, in a bit of a negative sense, because where's that been for your entire career? I don't anticipate that'll continue in this series. But regardless, it's why Houston being the overwhelming favorite in this series. Listen, I picked them. I said Rockets in 6. If Luka was healthy, I'd have a little bit of a different story, but these to me are two highly flawed teams that are going to get absolutely, the winner of this series is going to get boat raced by Oklahoma City. I think swept in round 2, whether it's Houston or the Lakers. Still think it'll be Houston, more on them later. But for LA, the reason that, you had, I think, Stephen A. Smith call a sweep. You had, shout out to Danny Parkins, who does a great job in FS1. He was calling sweep. I'm like, guys, listen, I know LeBron's been swept in his career by, the Duncan Spurs and the Steph Warriors. Respect to the Rockets. They ain't that. But the idea that I get it. 23 years in, 41 years old, the oldest player in the NBA by a long shot. I think he's 2 years old. I think Al Horford might be the second oldest player. Al Horford's like 39, coming off the bench for the Warriors. LeBron's 41 and still an all-star caliber guy. But what people underestimated is that, is LeBron still the athlete he used to be? No. Is LeBron the guy that can give you 40 points? What did he do, 8 times in the 2018 playoffs? No, he's not capable of doing that anymore. But what LeBron James is capable of, and what I think age has actually allowed him to showcase more of, his intelligence, his basketball IQ, his ability to read the defense, see what's going on, make the right play. LeBron used to get killed for years over that. Oh my gosh, how could you make a pass to Kyle Korver when you're triple teamed in the paint? How could you make the pass to this guy on the game-winning shot attempt rather than going into the paint when the entire, basically everybody in help defense is collapsing on top of you? Like that's who LeBron has been his entire career. I've often told the story. There's a great book by Jeff Benedict. It's just called LeBron. It came out a few years ago. Great book. Highly recommend it. And there's an anecdote in that book. I talked about this back in December. It has stuck with me ever since. That when LeBron was a kid, he's 7, 8 years old, right? And as you might imagine, 7, 8-year-old LeBron is killing everybody. He's dominating all the other kids. And his coach goes up to him. He's like, hey, kid, you're the best player in our team. But your teammates don't like you because you won't pass them. And given that this is LeBron James, we know his story, single parent household, didn't know his dad, no siblings. Like, there was a feeling in a lot of LeBron's youth of isolation. And so he's like, oh, wait a second. If I can get other guys involved, we build more camaraderie, we still win, I'm still great. Like, he put those pieces together as his childhood went, and that's evolved into his adulthood, into his NBA career. That's what's made him great. And it's amazing, even when he's not apex prime LeBron James, best player in the world for a decade plus. We play this game every once in a while. Some call it blind reveals. We decided to give it a little bit of a creative name to it. So here you go. That looks similar. So there's LeBron James, what he did against the Rockets on Saturday night, and mystery players on the right. So you can see that same points. LeBron had just a little bit more rebounds, assists, 13 to 12. So LeBron a little bit more, but virtually the same. 2 steals versus 1.9 steals, about the same. Bron shot 60% for the field. Again, 15 shots. This player shot 50% from the field for his career. Would you like to know who that is? Would you like to know who 41-year-old LeBron James, who the Houston Rockets knew coming into this game? I don't want to hear any excuses. Oh, we didn't have Kevin Durant. They knew going into this game. Austin Reeves probably out for the series. Luka Doncic, highly unlikely comes back in the series. We just got to worry about number 23. And LeBron James has been relegated to Magic Johnson's career. LeBron James in game 1 against the Rockets did, in that game, his statistical output is identical to Magic Johnson's career. 19 points versus 19.5. 8 rebounds, 7.7. 13 assists, 12.3. 2 steals, 1.9. Tomato. Bron shot 60%. Obviously, it's virtually impossible for someone to average 60% shooting over their career. Magic Johnson shot 50% from the field over his career. So LeBron James, as the only guy, the Rockets, this great defense, this well-coached team that I've been told for the last few years, I've never been an Ime Udoka guy. You guys know that. They know he's the only guy that can beat you. And listen, you do give credit to Luke Kennard, who was sensational. You give credit to Marcus Smart, to all these guys for stepping up because they had to. That's going to have to be the formula for the Lakers to win the series. Again, with Kevin Durant in all likelihood back for game 2, as long as he's fine, as long as he's still Kevin Durant, the Rockets are the better team. They're the more talented team. They should win this series. But if those role players, particularly at home, Lakers do have home court for what it's worth, games 1, 2, 5, and potential 7 if it goes that far. What do we know about role players? It's a tale as old as time in the playoffs. It's why the 2020 bubble was so weird. No home court advantage and no road games. Therefore, the role players, it didn't really matter. They were good or bad regardless of the circumstances. We know how that goes. Now, I don't think the Luke Kennards of the world or the Marcus Smarts of the world or Rui Hachimura or any of these guys are going to step up going to Houston for games 3, 4, and potentially 6, which I think is where the series is going to end in game 6. But for Rockets players, Okogie, Tari Eason. Okay, mic's unmuted. I apologize. Sometimes that happens on the show. The role players for Houston will step up at the Toyota Center. But I could just watching that game, it's like, my gosh, he's 41. He's the oldest player in the league. We're not even sure if he's going to play next year. I think he probably is. I think it's Knicks or Warriors as my 2 guesses. Because I think LeBron will want to be in some sort of a ball handling type of role, which he is right now. This is when he's most comfortable. But he talked after the game. Well, then we'll get to the Rockets. But LeBron James talked after the game about his preparation going into game 1 against Houston.
Well, for me, I got to do a little bit of everything. That's what the job requires. And, so it's being a triple threat, being able to rebound, being able to pass, being able to shoot. Also defend, put myself in a position where I can, bring value to this ball club, bring value to this team, throughout this series. And, it's going to be a game-to-game situation to see what, how the game plays out. So I don't predetermine what I'm going to do. The only thing that's predetermined in my game is how I prepare. I prepare before I get to the game, and then once I get out there, it's all about reading, reacting, understanding situations. I've been in every situation you can ever imagine as a basketball player, so there's nothing that can surprise me.
And that's why I still have this sustained greatness. I don't want to get in the GOAT discussion. I've said many times over the years, I don't want to really get into that deep until LeBron's retired, which could be this summer. I doubt it. I think it's in all likelihood next summer. But it's the approach, it's the work. That's how it is in any industry. You put in the work, especially when you're somebody as gifted as LeBron James, especially as somebody as intelligent about the game of basketball as LeBron James is. you'll be able to have that sustained success. That's why Steph Curry's still great at 38 years old. That's why Kevin Durant's still great at 37 years old. It's why Russell Westbrook, it's not a work thing with Russell Westbrook. It's didn't adjust to the modern NBA issue. The inability to shoot threes, the inability to be efficient. What's hurt Harden? Harden's still very good, borderline all-star, but not close to prime James Harden. Hasn't kept his body in shape. And so, like, that's what separated the legends. And so, just major kudos to LeBron James. Still think Houston wins this series, but that was highly impressive what he pulled off on Saturday night. And by the way, I said Luke Kennard scored 25. He actually scored 27, so apologies for shorting him. I want to talk Houston now because I don't want to overreact and say it like, oh my God, that was so embarrassing. Like if, like embarrassing is what the Magic did to the Hawks. What the Magic did to the Charlotte Hornets on Friday night. That was embarrassing. By the way, that's the third time the Hornets have been in the play and lost by like 30. Like it's whatever. Here's what's really concerning if you're a Houston Rockets fan. The whole idea of this season, and when you made the trade, when the Rockets made the trade for Kevin Durant, I think it was actually the day of Game 7 of the Finals last year. I came out on my show the next day and be like, yeah, that's a team that can win the West. They pushed Golden State to 7 games with the young squad. Okay, that experience is going to help them in 2026, and they had Kevin Durant. They didn't have a go-to scorer last year in the playoffs. Now they do. And as soon as Fred VanVleet got hurt preseason, I called on the show the day of opening. I said, I'm out on the Rockets. If you don't have a true point guard and they never made a move at the deadline for reasons I'm not entirely sure to address that position, then Steven Adams went down, so there goes more size and playoff experience, is that the 3 vets, the 3 guys that you kind of rely on the floor, as well as from a leadership perspective, from a, hey, I've been there before perspective. VanVleet's a champion. Katie's an MVP and champion. Steven Adams has played a lot of playoff games. All 3 are gone. Now, Katie's going to be back in all likelihood by game 2, but it was kind of the young guns by themselves out there, and not great. Listen, Alperen Şengün, listen. Lakers got more size this year than they had last year. I mean, last year it was like Jackson Hayes. Sometimes they put Maxi Kleber. It was kind of a disaster. Adding DeAndre Ayton has helped. But DeAndre Ayton's never been accused of being this great rim protector. He's no Rudy Gobert or something, or Victor Wembanyama. And Alperen Şengün shoots 6 of 19 from the field. Scores 19 points. Alperen Şengün, who, let me check my notes here, is 23 years old, got massively outplayed by the 41-year-old. It wasn't even close. And LeBron just beat him on pure intelligence, hey, I've been there a million times. I'm going to manipulate the game from an IQ perspective. Well, that's part of what the appeal is for Şengün. He's kind of not even a poor man. It's kind of a homeless man's Jokic to a certain degree in the sense of, hey, he can run the offense from time to time. He can score down low. Not a very good perimeter shooter. That's where he's very different from Jokic. Not nearly as efficient. Also very different from Jokic. But he's somebody you can rely on to get you a game in this series with or without Kevin Durant, especially with the more talented roster items. Şengün was awful, I thought, in that game. Here's what I can't understand from Ime Udoka. And Ime Udoka, listen, the situation in Boston was a mess and how that ended up, and I'm glad he got his opportunity in Houston. By and large, done a good job. Right, the Rockets were awful. Took over his first year. They almost make the play-in. Second year, they're the 2 seed. This year, they win as many games. I think 1 short of the number of games they won last year. 52 wins. But this is why I've always been very sort of iffy on the, hey, Ime Udoka's this elite defensive coach. Is he? Is he? Because he got the reputation. Oh man. Now Ime Udoka's defense, they give Steph Curry problems. Yeah, I saw Steph average 30 plus in a series against the Boston Celtics on really efficient shooting in the 2022 finals, in which he almost single-handedly beat the Celtics. So I don't know. And then last year in the playoffs, he was unbelievable. Like I think Steph kind of owns Ime Udoka's defense. There's one guy can beat you. One. No Luka Doncic, no Austin Reeves. One guy can beat you. Think maybe just a suggestion. Might want to put Amin Thompson on. You know, your long, rangy, twitchy, quick defender. Might want to put him on LeBron James. Just a concept, just an idea. I mean, it's. I don't know if this was. He treated this as a game 1 that was kind of a foregone conclusion. Hey, I know Kevin Durant's out, but Lakers are beat up. They finished the season poorly. We'll get game 1. Kind of treated game 1s like LeBron is prime used to treat game 1s as a feel-out game. buddy, the Rockets are not good enough to have just got to toss it aside feel-out game. You're not good enough to do that. So I thought his game plan was awful. That Şengün was awful. And I understand some of the role players look down the roster, Jayson Tatum, Tari Eason. Like, I understand these guys aren't going to be as good on the road as they are going to be at home. That's how the NBA playoffs work. But I thought Udoka was very nonchalant. I thought the Rockets' energy, like the Lakers seem to be playing with more of a sense of urgency. Again, they're the underdogs, so that makes sense. But guys, you're on the road. If you could get game one, then you can kind of play it safe in game two. Not play guys heavy minutes. Kevin Durant comes back. Like, you don't have to get game two. Now it feels like you kind of have to get game two. I saw a stat. Shout out to Nick Wright on First Things First. I saw a stat today that said if LeBron James has a 2 or more game lead in a series, he's never lost. Whether it's 2-0 or 3-1, he's never lost. And so, like, by that metric, the Rockets have to win game two. I think they will. There's a reason Vegas had them as like 4.5-point favorites. KD almost certainly is going to be back. That's going to help them tremendously. Hey, give the ball to the big 6'11" guy, one of the 5 greatest scorers of all time. Let him go to work. Like, that will be what Houston does. But it's one of the reasons, again, not having a point guard, not having a guy to initiate the offense. Why they didn't address that at the trade deadline after Van Vliet went down is beyond me. I don't know. I thought that was a very, very poorly coached game by Ime Udoka, who I've always thought is a good coach, not the defensive wizard that people make him out to be. Because if he was, Amin Thompson, by far your best perimeter defender, maybe put him on their best wing, especially when the other 2 scoring wings are out. I'm no basketball genius, but feels like that was kind of the obvious play, and he didn't use that card. So there you go. Speaking of, young upstart teams, here's one that did meet the moment last night. And matter of fact, we just got breaking news. We have actual breaking news on the show today, so let's go and put that up. This is legit. This just came in, according to Shams. Victor Wembanyama has won the Defensive Player of the Year award. That just came in from Shams Charania. No surprise at all. Is there any word if it's unanimous? Okay, no word if it's unanimous yet, but Shams is saying youngest player of all time to win Defensive Player of the Year. I think Wemby's like 22, so it's a perfect transition, a perfect segue into his game last night against the Portland Trailblazers. Show what Wemby did. It was utterly sensational. 35 points, 5 rebounds is actually kind of low. Shout out to Donovan Clingan, the job he did with the Trailblazers. Good big out of UConn. But Victor Wembanyama, 35-5 with 2 blocks, 13-21 from the field, 5 of 6 from three-point range, 4 of 5 from the free throw line. And listen, there was a lot of discussion, and we're 1 game in. I understand. I get it. But there was a lot of discussion. Man, what if Wemby's like a playoff choker? Like, we've never seen him in the spot. The Spurs are very young. They'd be one of the youngest teams to win a championship. But what if Wemby's just not ready? It's totally on the board that the Spurs don't win the championship because Wemby physically, he's put on muscle since he came in the league, but I think he still needs to go take a few more steps in that direction. I think we saw that there was a game against the Knicks about a month ago that kind of exposed it, like, oh, they kind of beat him up a little bit and he wasn't the same guy. The physicality might bother him. But as far as is he ready for the moment? I thought that was an absurd conversation. First of all, we saw this man as he's 22 now, so he was 20 during the 2024 Olympics. Take France to the gold medal game, and if not for the greatest Olympic stretch of all time by Steph Curry, France might win that gold medal led by Wemby at 20 years old. Moment wasn't too big for him. Wemby openly campaigned in the last month of the regular season for MVP. He's like, yeah, I want to win MVP. I'm not going to sit up here and act like I don't care about winning that award because I do. So that guy with that mentality, you think, I mean, somebody who went so far as to, with his former teammate Chris Paul, to basically cheat in the skills competition a few years ago at the All-Star game. Like, this guy is uber competitive. This guy is ready for the moment. The idea of this, oh my gosh, the lights are going to be too big for him. Again, it's game 1 of the first round against a team that the Spurs are much better than. Much respect to Portland. I said on Thursday, they have a very bright future ahead. Spurs are much better. They should win. I think they'll win in a gentleman's sweep. Portland will get 1 in Portland, but that's it. But when you saw that game, and you saw, first of all, the energy in that arena was unbelievable. The color coding that they did in the stands, unbelievable stuff. Shout out to the Spurs and shout out to the Spurs fans for making that happen, including some Spurs legend that participated in the act. More of some Spurs legends in a moment. But you watch that game, and it is attack dog. He had 1 assist in this game. I think he averaged like 3 for the regular season. Wemby's not somebody who's going to get his teammates involved. He is a center after all, who plays the perimeter. Again, he's a freak of nature. he was just back and forth, going at guys' heads. What did he have, 20-21 in the first half? It's like, okay, yeah, he's ready for the moment. He's ready. If the Spurs don't win the championship because, hey, maybe OKC is just better than them, or, hey, the playoff physicality is going to wear on Wemby. Like, we really haven't seen an all-time legendary player in his first playoff run go all the way to the distance. You can say Magic Johnson in 1980, but Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was, go back, by far the best player on that team. Magic had the great Game 6 with the baby hook against Philly. I still contend Kareem should have been the MVP of that series. That's neither here nor there. Really the only modern-day example, and I'm not even sure how modern-day this is because this is pre-merger. I guess, is it pre-merger? Yeah, I guess it is. Bill Walton in 1977. First playoff run, led the Trailblazers to the title. That's really it. Like, as far as first playoff run, all-time legendary player leads his team to the championship. That doesn't happen. So history is not on the Spurs side. Experience is not on the Spurs side. We understand those things. The fact that I think teams could beat Wemby up physically, but as I've said, I don't know if anybody in the West is going to do that. The Blazers could, Klingon could. I don't think it's going to wear him down to the point, especially if this is a quick series to where it affects him moving forward. In the Denver series, Denver's a great offensive team, mediocre defensive team, and Jokic isn't going to beat Wemby up on that end. Oklahoma City, where's their most physical defenders on the perimeter? Whether it's Lu Dort, Caruso, any of these guys, like those, they can maybe bother Wemby on the perimeter, but if Wemby's down low, Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren are not really going to give him problems. Now, somebody at East might, Detroit might, Boston might, so might the Knicks, as we saw last month at the Garden. But this is somebody who was not scared, who was going attack dog from the jump against Portland. So I thought the discussion going into this game, oh man, is he, I'm not sure he's ready for this. And you watch this guy? Have you watched this guy? And by the way, it's the greatest debut by any San Antonio Spurs player in playoff history, at least from a scoring perspective. We can show that graphic. Wemby in his first playoff game had 35. The greatest Spur ever, Tim Duncan, had 32. David Robinson, the Admiral, had 26. Tony Parker had 21. And George Gervin, one of the most underrated scorers of all time, by the way, had 20 points in his first playoff game. So from a scoring perspective, he already got that out of the way. Best performance in his debut for San Antonio Spur, and Wemby talked about kind of the influence of those Spurs legends. Many of them were in the stands last night. Duncan, David Robinson, Gervin, Manu Ginobili. Here's what he said regarding some of the legends that came before him in San Antonio.
You've obviously gotten to spend some time with Tim and David, and I know Pop was at practice the other day. What do you feel the weight of just those legends in the building, or those guys, putting their arms around you, and what this means to this franchise and all of them?
I wouldn't say wait, no. I would say it feels safe. Feels like if you trip, there's a lot of hands that are ready to catch you. So it's from day one, it's felt that way.
I mean, I keep kind of alluding to it. What's so scary about this guy is the mentality, is the fact that, okay, listen, because of his stature, because of his physicality, how he's built, I don't think this is going to be a guy that lasts. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think this is going to be someone who's still torching the league at 37, 38 years of age. Maybe I'm wrong. We're talking 15 years down the road. Who the heck knows what happens by that point? But what I can say pretty confidently, barring not biggest knock on whatever, God forbid this happens, a devastating injury, this guy's not in his prime. This is year 3, guys. This is his first playoff run, and he's doing this. His first Olympics, he almost took out the Avengers Team USA team. When you have a talent like this, with the work ethic, with the drive, with the rip your heart out of your chest type of mentality, man, that's scary for the rest of the NBA. I think, listen, we all think the Spurs are going to dust Portland pretty quickly. Again, some people think it's sweep. I think it's 5 games. I respect to Avdia and Klingon and Shaden Sharp, those guys. I think they get 1 win in Portland. Spurs close them out in a game 5 at the Frostbank Center. But, listen, Denver, I called it last week on the show. If we get a Spurs Nuggets second round, which trending in that direction, that feels like a 7-game war between the best player in the league and a guy who's trying to be the best player in the league in Victor Wembanyama. And then a conference finals with them in OKC. They beat OKC 4 out of 5 times this year. Listen, I said it back in February. Y'all know, and it's funny, I'm about to talk about the Warriors after the break. I said, if the Warriors are healthy, they're my pick to win the title. Well, once Jimmy went down and Steph went down right after that, I'm like, okay, they're obviously not winning the title. I got to pick somebody now. I had with the Knicks out of the East, still the Knicks out of the East. And I said, I'm going with San Antonio. I believe in Wemby. I believe in not just the potential, but the mentality. I love the depth of this team. Castle and Vassell and Dylan Harper. And don't forget De'Aaron Fox and Harrison Barnes. Like, just all the guys that they can throw at you on both ends of the floor. San Antonio, I think, is going to win the championship. And I think you saw pieces of that in their win last night over the Trailblazers. When we come back, this is going to be a tough segment to do. Not in the fact that my Warriors lost to the Suns Friday night. It's like, okay, if we beat the Suns, Steph gets the you-know-what beat out of him against OKC. Like, okay, we maybe avoided disaster there. It's what the future looks like for the Warriors that's quite murky, to say the very least. A special Monday edition of Carving Up the Context coming up in just 1 minute and Carving Up Live. Also get into Jayson Tatum's outstanding performance against Philadelphia, why I think his Achilles recovery is the most impressive we've seen in NBA history, and that's saying something because some legends have gone through that similar of an injury. Also get to some of the other playoff series, the Dexter Lawrence trade. Tons of things to get into on Carving Up Live. We'll be back in just 1 minute on Carving Up Live. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Carve Up Live. I appreciate everybody for stopping by on a Monday. So I sort of pontificated or suggested or was thinking, hey, is Wemby the first ever unanimous? I didn't say first ever, but was he unanimous Defensive Player of the Year? Well, Shams Charania just reported more award history. Wembanyama is the first ever unanimous DPOY. So youngest ever to win the award and the only unanimous winner, which I think the unanimous was, I think, pretty obvious. I don't want to call myself a genius for predicting that or a savant for picking that. I think it was pretty obvious. Respect to Chet Holmgren and all the other great defenders in the league. Like, this was kind of a no-brainer. So 22 years old, youngest to win the award and the only unanimous one. And to think of all the legends that have won that award, pretty rare. And again, need I say this one more time? He's 22 years of age. Before we get into the Golden State Warriors, as we always do, check out Carving It Up merchandise. Scan the QR code, top left corner of your screen. It'll take you to the website. We got hats. We got t-shirts. We got anything you could possibly imagine as it relates to Carving It Up. Rep the brand. We'd really appreciate it. We've also got some amazing content or amazing merch from our other content creators on the Grid Network, whether it's the All Even Podcast, Metropolitan Reports, Cowboys Cam Fan, Mike and Josh. We got some great shows on the Grid Network, so check out their merchandise as well. Scan the QR code, top left corner of your screen. It'll take you to the Carving It Up merch, but you can also look around the website and look at our other merch for other content creators as well. We would greatly, greatly appreciate it if you did. Now, and this is probably going to be the last one of these that I'll be doing, not last Carving Up the Context. That's not going anywhere. But the last Warriors segment we'll be doing for some time. Well, I shouldn't say that. The Steve Kerr news, wherever he lands on that, we'll definitely discuss that in the show. But as far as the Warriors as a collective, this is one of, if not the last segment we'll be doing for this season. So let's get right into it. As the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, primetime Deion Sanders says, "Give me my theme music." This week's edition of Carving Up the Context, we're going to be talking about my beloved Golden State Warriors, who unfortunately had their season come to an end Friday night against the Phoenix Suns, 111-96. I say unfortunately. Again, if they beat Phoenix, they were DOA against Oklahoma City. We all know that. I mean, first of all, we saw that with what happened with Phoenix yesterday. Will they lose by 35 points? Dylan Brooks, good on you, buddy. 22 shots. How'd that work? Either way, It's not the fact that the Warriors season came to an end. I mean, frankly, I'm kind of just happy that it ended the way it did based on how the regular season came to a close. You lost 7 of 8. Steph wasn't healthy. Jimmy tore his ACL in January. It's like, hey, we got that one great moment against the Clippers. At least we got that. And then you lose to a Phoenix Suns team in which you were gassed. They were not. That was that. And I think we saw that in Steph Curry's play. Steph against the Clippers was just pure magic, as we saw 35 points, hit the go-ahead three-pointer, hit 7 threes in that game, 12 of 23. And then on Friday, he was spent. I tweeted it during the game. Steph looked gassed. There were points where he was kind of flexing his knee, so I don't know how well it was feeling. 17 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, but he was 4 of 16 for the field, 3 of 10 from three-point range. So Steph wasn't very good. Steph was tired. Draymond looked tired. It was not meant to be for the Warriors. It's the future of the franchise that's really kind of in question. Because there are 2 ways to look at where the Warriors could go. Let's start optimistic. Anytime someone says, you want the good news or bad news first? You want the good news so the bad news doesn't hurt as bad. The optimistic way of looking at the Golden State Warriors moving forward would be this. It'd be pretty straightforward, pretty simple. It's frankly the number one reason that back in October, I picked them to win the title if healthy. Between February 8th of 2025 and January 19th of 2026, so almost a year sample. Can we put up that graphic if we have it? Here you go. Most wins in the NBA in that span. So Oklahoma City, number 1 by a mile. That's not surprising. Boston, number 2, not surprising. Pistons, number 1 seed this year. That's not surprising. Well, there's the Golden State Warriors in 4th and then followed closely by the Minnesota Timberwolves. So most wins between February 8th, 2025, January 19th, 2026, the Golden State Warriors in 4th place. So they won more games than the entire NBA except for the Thunder, Celtics, and Pistons. Why do I give those dates? February 8th, 2025, first game Jimmy played with the Warriors. January of 19th this year was the day Jimmy Butler tore his ACL. In that span, from a pure regular season wins perspective, they were the 4th best team in the NBA. The defending champion, favorites to go back-to-back Thunder, number 1. Celtics champions 2 years ago, favorites to come out of the East this year. Pistons 1 seed this year. That's it. It's why the Warriors, when they acquired Jimmy, last 2 months of last year's regular season after acquiring Jimmy, best defensive league, even ahead of Oklahoma City. So the optimistic thing is, run it back. You got Steph. You assume Draymond comes back, more on him. Jimmy Butler comes back midseason, off to the races. You bring back Porzingis, get what you can get out of him, go from there. The more pessimistic thing to look at, and I'll be honest, it's kind of where I land closer to, is the immediate future of this franchise. And by immediate, I mean like next year and not beyond that. Any chance whatsoever, any chance the Warriors have at winning the West, any chance whatsoever, Steve Kerr has to be the coach. It's that simple. And we'll play what Kerr said after the game Friday night, and then we'll play what Draymond said on his podcast over the weekend. Steve Kerr, for those who don't know, his contract's up. He went into the season. We talked about this briefly. He went into the season not wanting to extend. He wanted to play this last year out and then decide what he wanted to do with his future after the season. Well, season's over, and Kerr was asked about that after the loss to Phoenix on Friday night. Take a listen to Coach Kerr.
My plan is to take a little time and, I don't know, take a week or two and eventually sit down and talk with Joe and Mike. We've always had a great partnership and collaboration, and just see where they are, and I'll tell them where I am, and we'll talk about what's next for the Warriors, what the plan is this offseason, and we will come to a collaborative decision on what's next. I don't know what's going to happen. I still love coaching, but I get it. These jobs all have an expiration date. There's a run that happens, and when the run ends, sometimes it's time for new blood and new ideas and all that. And if that's the case, then I will be just nothing but grateful for the most amazing opportunity.
And so you see right there, that was Coach Kerr. You saw after this, or in the waning moments of the game, a minute left, Suns are up 15, game's over. You see right there, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Steve Kerr embracing in a moment. We ended up getting it mic'd up. Dirk Nowitzki as I think I and most of Dub Nation was, Dirk Nowitzki's a Mav lifer. Was getting teary-eyed in the post game with Amazon. By the way, the Amazon Prime crew does a fantastic job, and it was just like, man, this could be the end of the run. And Draymond went a little bit deeper on that on his podcast. Take a listen to Draymond.
Steph, myself, Steve shared a moment in what could be our last time playing with Steve as our coach. I'm happy we got to share that moment, and like, he didn't miss the moment. It was a big deal. I hope he's our coach next year. You want my opinion? I think not. Just because it just feels like that. It felt like that was it. I also hope I'm on this team next year. We also don't know that. And man, if it was, what a run it's been.
And so here's how I interpret the Draymond bit. Draymond, for better and for worse, for the Warriors dynasty, it's mostly been for the better, is a guy who leads with his emotions. More times than not, that's good for the Warriors. There are occasions where that's bad. During the Warriors' peak, it was great. I think, y'all know I love Draymond. Not that we shouldn't take what he says seriously. Draymond's a little bit closer to the Warriors than most of us are. But I think even for him, for Kerr, for everybody, need to take more time. And Steve even said, we played in the soundbite there, that he's going to take a week, 2 weeks, like not too long, but a decent amount of time to figure out what he wants to do. Ramona Shelburne and Anthony Slater, two fantastic journalists at ESPN, wrote a very fascinating piece this morning regarding the decisions the Warriors have to make. And the part that stood out for me is that, if we have this here in the ESPN article, the organization and Kerr, if Kerr wants to come back, which I think he might, to be honest with you. My gut tells me, as Steve said it throughout the season, I'm not leaving Steph Curry. He said it multiple times throughout the year. I think Steve would like to coach next year, because I've suggested that the Warriors say, hey, you know what? We're going to triple down on the old guys. Steph's back. Steph said after the game he wants an extension. Steph's going to be a Warriors lifer. I think I feel pretty confident about that. Draymond's got 1 year left of an expiring contract, a player option. Warriors potentially, maybe he opts out of that and they sign us a more team-friendly deal. We'll see. So you know what? We've got assets. Like, it's not like the Warriors are in the Clippers position where they're just trapped. They have no draft picks, nothing. The Warriors control all of their draft picks for the next 5-6 years. So that's not an issue. Maybe we don't feel comfortable trading for Giannis with the injury history, does he fit? And Kawhi Leonard, we can't trust him to stay healthy. Say, screw it. Let's go get LeBron James and make the Steph, Jimmy, Bron, Draymond ride with the old guys. This is the last dance. Kerr's the coach, and then see what the heck happens. The organization, Mike Dunleavy, who himself signed an extension, the GM of the Warriors, him, Joe Lacob, ownership, their mindset is, we kind of want you to be committed long-term. We don't want to sign you to one extension and then next year look for a new coach, and they don't want to go in that direction. And to a degree, you understand why. I repeat what I said. If the Warriors have any prayer's chance of contending next year, that guy has to be the coach. No ifs, ands, or buts. He has to be the coach. I'm a little bit. It's funny. You only say nice things. What's the old saying? Like, you have so many nice things to say about them when they're gone. Like, we hear that when someone passes, and like maybe you had problems with them, but you're complimentary of them. Warriors Twitter has been in almost mutiny against Kerr for the last years. Why aren't you playing Steph more minutes? Oh, I don't know, because he doesn't want to run the greatest player in franchise history into the ground. Oh, why is he managing the rotation the way he is? Here's the big one. Why isn't he playing Jonathan Kuminga more minutes? You see Kuminga in game 1 against the Knicks? Yikes. Find one Golden State Warrior better after he left than when he was with Golden State. You find one. I'll wait, because that player does not exist. They can bring in a rookie. They can bring in, the article even talked about, they might look at the college ranks, which I'm a little skeptical of that. They're done. forget winning, contending for championships without Steve Kerr. That point blank period. Let's say Kerr comes back. I think that likely means Draymond's back. What does that mean? This is where I think the LeBron component comes in the sense of you need that secondary score next to Steph. They had it in Jimmy. They'll have it next year in Jimmy, but what's Jimmy going to look like post-ACL? Bron, we saw it the other night, could still control a game. But what's Draymond's role if LeBron James is on ball or is the de facto point guard of the team, which Draymond has been? And as much as Draymond's still an elite defender, not best defender in the league like he was 10 years ago, still an elite defender. Part of Draymond's value was what he brought you in the offensive end in terms of running the offense with his mental telepathy with Steph. And this year, that just wasn't the case, and the numbers back it up. On the floor, the Warriors had a 109 rating with Draymond Green. When he was off the floor, it was 114, which for those that maybe don't follow offensive ratings, let me just tell you, that's gigantic. It's huge. 5 points, basically. Offensive rating difference, massive. Draymond, I think, and he even acknowledged during the season he'd be open to this, would have to accept a bench role. Because Steph has said he expects the Warriors to bring in a big-time name. I would not love a Kawhi Leonard move. I would be okay with the Giannis move. Giannis's price has probably come down a little bit. I would be most okay with the LeBron James move. I pretty much know what I'm getting from him. I know what Bron is giving me on a night-to-night basis. I know Bron would fit with the Warriors. I know he'd fit with Steph. And just ride home with the old guys. But it's all going to come down to Kerr's decision. That could happen this week. It could happen next week. It's going to have to happen soon. You know, he's not on the Aaron Rodgers timeline when he can just take sweet time while the franchise has no clue what they want to do based on his decision. Anthony Slater said on NBA Today, could be this week, could be, early next week, Sunday. It's going to be pretty soon before the Warriors decide what they're going to do with the draft lottery coming up. But the reality for the Golden State Warriors is this. If Steve Kerr decides it's been a great 12 years, 4 championships, amazing run. I want to be with my wife and kids. And maybe I want to go back into broadcasting. Kerr was a great broadcaster over the years with TNT. Then the Warriors are done, which likely means Draymond's gone, which then means, as has been referenced, the end of Steph's career probably looks a lot like the end of Kobe's career with the Lakers and Dirk's career with the Dallas Mavericks. Great player, best player in franchise history. I think Kobe's the greatest Laker ever. Now, the good news is the Lakers' front office management was truly incompetent with their draft picks. I saw something where they haven't extended they have extended one of their own draft picks since like Andrew Bynum. The Dallas Mavericks ended up lucking into. They were just bad. Got Luka before they traded him away. The Warriors have good front office management. This is a great draft. They control their picks moving forward. I don't see Golden State mortgaging everything for the here and now from a draft pick compensation perspective. I think their mindset is, let's bring in LeBron or Kawhi. I really hope it's LeBron. We hope Steve wants to commit to the long term. By the way, if Steve doesn't want to commit to the long term, that probably means you don't get LeBron or Draymond. And then Steph spends the last 3-4 years of his career still playing good basketball, but playing pretty meaningless basketball. That's the reality of it. That's where the Golden State Warriors are at. So that's it for this week's edition of Carving Up the Context. Got some comments here. The Humble 61 says, good game, man. Dre is a Hall of Famer. He accomplished 90% of success, more than most people in the NBA today. So there's no shame. Listen, Draymond retires tomorrow. He's a Hall of Famer. I've heard some people like, is he a Hall of Famer? Guys, he's a Defensive Player of the Year, 2-time gold medalist, 4-time champion. He's a Hall of Famer. By the way, the second most integral part of a dynasty. He's a Hall of Famer. First ballot, by the way. Code Main 5 says, Draymond during the trade talk sounded like he was 95% not going to be there, and then nothing happened. The only way Draymond was going to get traded is if it were for Giannis. And by the way, at that night, I remember it was a Tuesday night game against the Sixers. The Warriors got blown out in that game. There's no Steph, no Jimmy, obviously. And Draymond had a line like, hey, if this is it, what a bleeping run. That was when it was like, oh, the Warriors might actually get Giannis. And then I think the next night they ended up trading for Porzingis once they were out of the Giannis sweepstakes. But I think if Draymond has been he's campaigned fiercely for Kerr on his podcast over the last couple of episodes. Steph Curry was complimentary. The Warriors had a bunch of exit interviews today. Al Horford and guys were like, yeah, we love Steve. We'd love for him to be back. a lot of the Warriors' future is going to hinge on whether he decides to come back. Yeah, Humble 61. Thank you. Respect to Kerr, man. I'm sick of, and I think it's mostly A, the fringes, and B, kind of dissipating. Now it's like, oh, we might lose this guy. The Kerr's overrated talk, like, okay, this guy has been good at everything he's ever done in the NBA. Everything. He wasn't a great player. He's a very important. He hit the game-winning shot in the finals, for crying out loud. Michael Jordan trusted him in 97, Game 6 against Utah, to hit the game-winning shot, and he knocked it down. So he was a productive and by the way, he's the all-time leader in three-point percentage in NBA history. That should count for something. As an executive, he was excellent. The second he was out of Phoenix, they went back to sucking again. He was a great broadcaster and a great coach for the Warriors. I think Steve Kerr knows more basketball than the dopes on Twitter, who says, hey, why aren't you playing, remember a couple years ago, why aren't you playing Trace Jackson Davis more? Like, guys, I'm going to leave it to Kerr. By the way, he was coached by Phil Jackson, Greg Popovich. He's had some pretty good mentors. Who would take that job? Co-main 5 asks, who would take that job? Nobody. I've seen worse jobs. The problem is not who would take the job, but who the Warriors would look for is the question. Because Michael Malone ended up taking the job at UNC, but if Michael Malone was on the market, he's not going to Golden State. It's like, yeah, okay, I coached Steph for the last year and a half of his prime, and then what? It's the fact that, the Warriors are looking at the college ranks. Okay, there haven't been that many college coaches that have succeeded at the next level. Like, it's a short list. Very similar to the NFL. Like, look for the lead assistants with San Antonio, Oklahoma City, Boston. Like, the great coaches, look over there first before you look at the college level. Never forget, Chicago Bulls, when they fired Phil Jackson after the 98 championship, hired a college coach. How'd that go? Now, to be fair, Jordan Pippen and Rob Monroe still how'd that look? Not too good. So, okay. A lot on the Warriors. Let's transition now. Let's transition to the Boston Celtics, because what they did to Philadelphia, listen, them blowing out Philadelphia wasn't all that shocking. I said this is a 5-game series. Some people think it's going to be a sweep. Wouldn't shock me at all. If Embiid were healthy, as disappointing of a playoff performer as Joel Embiid is, it's at least interesting seeing how Boston's able to counter that from a size perspective. But they dominated the 76ers. I think it was 123-91, if I'm not mistaken. And Jayson Tatum was sensational. We can show you what he did in that game against Philadelphia. Sensational. 25 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals. He was 9 of 17 for the field, 1 of 7 from 3. He hasn't been very good from 3 since coming back from the Achilles. More on the Achilles in just a moment. But he's shooting like, I think, 32% from 3 in the month since he's come back. So that'll get better either later in the playoffs or next season. And there you go, 6 for 6 from the free throw line. I was thinking about this, watching the game yesterday and in my prep for today's show. When you think about the legendary players that have had really the worst injury a basketball player can suffer, and that's tearing their Achilles, I think this might be the most impressive recovery that we've seen yet. Like, if you think about the most, I'd say the benchmark was Dominique Wilkins. Dominique Wilkins, middle of, I think it was 91-92 that January, tore his Achilles. Comes back the following year, and he's better. He averages like 30 a game. He's great with the Atlanta Hawks. As great as Dominique was, the Hawks were, I think, the 7 seed and got bounced in round 1 by the Bulls, by the Jordan Bulls. So from a team success perspective, didn't really get them much. Kobe Bryant famously tore his Achilles, and that was the end of Kobe's prime. Klay Thompson, after tearing his ACL, then tore his Achilles, never saw prime Klay again. Now, if you think about what about Kevin Durant? Kevin Durant blew his Achilles in the 19 finals, came back, he missed all of the following season, came back the next year and was as good as ever. Remember, he had that game 5 and game 7 against Milwaukee. Remember, toe on the line, where he's just single-handedly keeping the Nets in against the Bucks. Some of the best basketball Kevin Durant's ever played. Never forget this. KD tore his Achilles. It's not to say it's not impressive, but KD tore his Achilles in June of 2019 because of he didn't play the following season because of COVID pushing the next season back. He didn't play until December of 2020. He got 18 months between games. So he got plenty of recovery time. Jayson Tatum blew his Achilles in May of last year, came back in March, and by April, he's out here 3 assists shy of 25-point triple-doubles. Looks just as athletic as pre-Achilles. Moving, I don't want to say moving quite as well as pre-Achilles. I think that'll come in time. He's still a relatively, young athlete. what is he, 28 years of age? Still, he's in his prime. Boston is understandably the favorites to win the East. I've got the Knicks. I picked the Knicks before the season started. I think the logic in picking the Knicks over Boston this year is, well, they did it last year when the Knicks weren't as well coached, when the Celtics had a better roster, and they were about to go up 3-1 when Tatum went down with the injury. The Knicks, to me, have the advantage. I think we're going to get that series when it's all said and done. With that being said, it is a little terrifying if Boston ends up winning this championship. Because the rationale would be, okay, Missoula's first year. I remember I and everybody was like, gosh, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. You got to remember, Joe Mazzulla took the job in Boston, was it a month before the season? It was 3 weeks before the season after the Udoka's controversy happened. And Joe Mazzulla wasn't even Boston's lead assistant. He was sitting behind the bench. Joe Mazzulla takes over. They still get to the conference finals, almost come back from 3-0 on Miami before losing in Game 7. The next year, they rolled to the championship. Last year, kind of came apart at the end of games against the Knicks, but the rationale would be, yeah, but if Tatum doesn't go down, maybe we come back from 3-1 in the Knicks and go on to win the title, or at least get to the finals. And now this year, we move on from Porzingis, from Al Horford, from Drew Holiday, from these key, not even role players, but starter. In the case of Drew Holiday and Porzingis, starters. Tatum misses all but the last month of the regular season. People think it's going to be a transition year for us. And we're the 2 seed in the East. We're basically guaranteed, bare minimum, a second-round trip because Philadelphia just doesn't have the talent or the coaching to beat Boston. If we can knock out the Knicks with a worse roster this year than we had last year, and then we feel like we're better than, pick your poison, Detroit, Cleveland, we're better than them. If they end up beating OKC, San Antonio, Denver, whoever in the finals, then it's, wait a second, have we been looking at the wrong potential dynasty in this whole equation? Yeah, Oklahoma City's got draft picks. Oklahoma City's got to me, the second best player in the league in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But Boston would have won 2 of the last 3 titles. They would have won that second title with Tatum missing almost all the regular season, looking like close to prime Jayson Tatum off the Achilles. Then he gets a full offseason recovery. Then what happens? Then how long can we stretch this run if you're the Boston Celtics? Because what all dynasties have in common, there's a clear and obvious, two-man punch, so to speak. With the Warriors, it was Steph and Clay, or it was Steph and KD for 2 of those titles, or for the Shaq and Kobe Lakers, Jordan and Pippen with the Chicago Bulls, Kareem and Magic with the Lakers, and Bird and McHale with the Celtics. Just go up and down. Unless all the dynasties have the 1-2. The Thunder have a big 3. It's a debate based on the night and who that number 2 can be to Shai. It might be Chet, might be Jalen Williams. It's been more Chet this year because J-Dub's been dealing with the injury. Boston, everyone knows the hierarchy. It's Tatum and Brown. And then everyone follows from there. And there's a lot of certainty, comfort for the role guys that come with that. And so when you see him do what he did the other night, it's like, oh my gosh. Or the other night, it's actually yesterday afternoon, I guess. It's okay. He's been back for a few weeks, and he looks great. The three-point shot isn't there. Outside of that, everything else looks great. He's driving to the basket. He's getting fouled. He's knocking down his free throw. His mid-range looks good. He's rebounding really well since coming back. I remember his first game coming back. It was like, oh my gosh, he's getting really aggressive on the glass. Okay, this looks similar to what we saw from Tatum before the injury. Boston's scary, man. Listen, out of pick integrity and out of, I just think they match up better, I'm still going with the Knicks to beat the Celtics in round 2. Assuming the Knicks get past the Hawks, which I think they will. But if Boston wins this title, they were not supposed to do this year. I think their over-under in Vegas was 41.5. People were like, oh, they're going to be a play-in team. Part of it is because they didn't think Tatum would come back. It's why Halliburton didn't play all season for Indiana. It's oh, we're going to be bad. And it's holy crap, we're the 2 seed. Tatum, are you close? Yeah. Recovery's going great. Boston's scary. They again, I understand. I understand that, I understand Philadelphia's a limited roster and they've got some moves to make in the offseason. Maybe trading Embiid is one of them. That was impressive. by the Celtics. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk Dexter Lawrence trade to the Cincinnati Bengals. Well, I actually think it's a smart move by Cincinnati. What the Giants, I think, will do, having 2 of the top 10 picks in this draft. Also get to Detroit and the Detroit Pistons, that is, and a very concerning loss to the Orlando Magic last night. Get to all those things and recap of some of the other game ones in the NBA in just a minute on Carving Up Live. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Appreciate everybody for stopping by. So just a program update. So very, very excited for this week. This is one of my favorite weeks of the entire sports calendar year. Someone was arguing that if October isn't the best sports month of the calendar, then April is. And you can make that case. Masters, end of March Madness, and the NBA playoffs, NFL draft, baseball's back. NFL draft. This Thursday, ladies and gentlemen, of course, as we've done for the last few years, we are going to be coming to you live on the Grid Network, recapping doing a live reaction of the first round. That is going to be this Thursday night at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific time. We'll likely also be doing a day 2 draft coverage. Mike Guido's going to be a part of it, hoping to get EJ Savage on there as well. He's a draft savant just like Guido is, and get some guests throughout the show. So we greatly appreciate if you guys show up. It's going to be 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific time, live on the Grid Network. React to each and every pick, trades that happen during the night, anything that could possibly happen. Again, the draft is one of my favorite nights. The NFL draft, it is one of my favorite nights of the year. That's coming up this Thursday. Of course, we bring it to you on the Grid Network. 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific time. Be there because it is going to be an absolute blast. Speaking of the draft, we had a move that was made on, I guess it was Saturday night, that impacts the draft in a major way. So the New York Giants and their really superstar defensive tackle Dexter Lawrence were in a bit of an impasse as it relates to him getting a contract extension. And so a couple of weeks ago, he asked for a trade, and the Giants granted him that request. They traded him to the Cincinnati Bengals. Usually if there's a trade, we show you a graphic. We don't need to. It's pretty straight up. Dexter Lawrence went to the Bengals. Bengals gave the 10th overall pick to the Giants. So for Cincinnati, then we'll get to New York. For Cincinnati, so they, of course, if they're going to trade for Dexter Lawrence, they got to give him the extension, and they did. They added a year and $28 million, so he signed through the 2028 season. So Dexter Lawrence is still he's a a 2-time all-pro defensive tackle, 3-time Pro Bowler. Like, he's an elite player at his position. He's been a key cog in the Giants having one of the 3 or 4 best defensive lines in the league the last few years. The problem is, outside that, their team was pretty terrible, but Dexter did his job, to say the very least. If you're Cincinnati, I think I saw a stat today where they've drafted something like 29, 30 defensive players since 2010. None of them have been Pro Bowlers, at least when Cincinnati. Only one of them has been Jesse Bates, who ended up going to the Falcons. Then he was a Pro Bowler with Atlanta. No defensive Pro Bowlers drafted in the last 15 years for the Bengals. Their mindset is, man, the Joe Burrow trade rumors, they were kind of circulating. Not that he get dealt last season, but does Joe want to be in Cincinnati? Remember Burrow, once the Bengals were out of playoff contention, was openly contemplating retirement? It's like, we got to kind of do whatever we can to keep him here. We suck at drafting defensive players. Everybody knows we're going to take a defensive player in the draft. If we don't go line, let's just go ahead and sign or trade for one of the best players at his position in terms of nose tackles. Let's bring in Dexter Lawrence, and that can help our defense, and we'll hopefully solve the rest of our issues in the draft on that side of the ball. So from that perspective, I usually rip the Bengals for their front office management being cheap. I ripped them last year. Not that he's not an excellent player, but for signing T. Higgins, I'm like, you don't need T. Higgins. You had T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Burrow healthy for the full season, and it got you nothing because your defense, no line sucked. This move I defend wholeheartedly, especially now that you lost Trey Hendrickson, which that was another bad bit of business for the Bengals, was letting Hendrickson walk for nothing, not at least getting something for him in a trade last season or the year before that. Regardless, this is a smart move, I think, by Cincinnati. He's late 20s, we understand that, but there's an element of we kind of need to get some, not that the Bengals are in a win now mindset, but in a keep Joe Burrow here right now mindset. Because after this season, the Bengals go 7-10, 8-9, and Burrow's great. Or if Burrow deals with injuries, if Stafford, I think the Rams have been the team he's been most linked to potentially because it's a cross-conference trade. And also the idea of Burrow with McVay is kind of terrifying. If Stafford retires after next year, Rams could use a quarterback. So like that's, from that perspective, I get it from the Bengals. And I also get it for the Giants. So now New York has been a spot. The last couple of mock drafts, by the way, mock draft 5.0, the final one coming on Wednesday show, so stay tuned for that. For the New York Giants, I've had Malagoa, the offensive lineman from Miami, mocked to them in the last few mock drafts at number 5 overall to address the offensive line. I get they could use another receiver. They could use a lot of things. They could use a receiver opposite, what's my guy's name? LSU receiver. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting his name. Son of a, what is his, shoot. Sometimes I have brain farts on the show, folks. Giants receiver. What is his name? Crap. Malik Neighbors. Yes, Malik Neighbors. Need a number 2 receiver opposite Malik Neighbors. They could really use some help on the back end of their defense. I've seen Caleb Downs mocked to the Giants in the last few weeks. Now they've got a lot more freedom with what to do with that. Here's what I think, and maybe a little bit of a preview for mock draft Wednesday. I think if you're the Giants, well, now you can address both. My gut, unless he goes in the top 4, which I don't think he will, you go Caleb Downs, who's by far the best defensive back in this draft, at number 5. And given how deep this draft is, especially at the top, at offensive linemen, or tackles in particular, I should say, because there's one pretty good guard from Penn State, and that's kind of it as it relates to potential star quality there, because look at NFL history, most of the great offensive linemen are drafted in the first, at the very least, the second rounds. Then you could go offensive lineman at number 10. Just who's the best guy on the board? It could be either the Utah tackles. It could be, again, Malagoa from Miami. Like there's a lot of options that they could potentially have if they wanted. Caden Proctor would be a little bit of a reach. He's more of a mid to late first round prospect. Very athletic. What is he? 6'7", massive guy. But they'll have their pick of some of the best. Like we assume probably 1, maybe 2 tackles go off the board. Get the best player to address your defense in Caleb Downs. You still have an elite defensive line as is. Losing Dexter Lawrence doesn't help, but you still got some great players up front. Get Caleb Downs to shore up your secondary. Get an offensive lineman to protect Jackson Dart. And then figure out wide receiver a little bit later on. It's a great receiving draft, particularly at the top. Wide receiver historically is the easiest position to find in the draft in the sense that you can find one in the top 10 and you can find one in the 5th, 6th, or 7th round. So I think for the Giants, this works. For the Bengals, it kind of feels like you had to make a move like this because the chance of them hitting on their first round pick on defense this year, pretty slim if you look at the last 15 years. Again, no Pro Bowlers drafted since 2010 on defense for the Cincinnati Bengals. The only one that they did draft who ended up becoming a Pro Bowler was Jesse Bates, and he was a Pro Bowler after he left the Bengals and went to Atlanta. So safe to say Cincinnati does not draft or develop defensive players very well. Let's just go ahead and bring in a guy who is already elite in Dexter Lawrence. And so I get it from Cincinnati's perspective. For the Giants, John Harbaugh, new culture, having 2 of the first top 10 picks in the draft helps. And by the way, they didn't have to give up any picks in this deal. Like they didn't have to give up a first, second. They've got all their picks. So they're in good shape moving forward. Back to the NBA, because there was, as much as the Houston Rockets disappointed me in their performance against the Lakers, again, I get no Kevin Durant, but the Lakers also didn't have Luka and Austin Reeves. Now, again, you can make the case that the Lakers knew they wouldn't have those guys. The Rockets, it kind of came out of nowhere that KD's knee was going to keep him out. Sounds like he's going to come back for game 2. The Rockets are still a better team. They still should win the series. I maintain Rockets in 6. There was one game among the teams that I picked. Obviously, the Suns aren't going anywhere. There's one game among the teams that I picked to go to the second round that really concerned me. And that was last night in Detroit with the Pistons losing to the Magic. By the way, not just losing the Magic, Losing wire to wire. They never held the lead, which I think has never happened for a 1 seed in their first playoff game. There's a lot of reasons that this is bad. Just from this game and this matchup, it's bad because, I mean, I've been as the only person more disappointed with the Orlando Magic this year are Orlando Magic fans led by, shout out to my man Josh Tariff. Catch Mike and Josh every week on the Grit Network. It's a great show. He's also on with Barry with their wrestling show. Josh Tariff and all the other Magic fans who are just flummoxed at how this season has been kind of a disaster. Like, the Magic were a team this year, folks, that people thought they could win 50 games. I picked them to go to the conference finals this season. Like, Powell's going to take another step, and they're a great defensive team, and they added Desmond Bane, and here comes the Met, and they're in the play-in again, and they lose to Boston's G League team on Sunday when the Celtics had nothing to play for and the Magic had seeding to play for. Then they lose to Philadelphia without Embiid, and then they do blow the doors off Charlotte, but that tends to happen to Charlotte in the play-in if you look at the last 5 years. But they're kind of tired and beat up, and the team chemistry seems to be fractured. It looks like Jamal Mosley's going to get fired after the season. This is a disaster, and they win wire to wire in Detroit. So as far as the opponent, not great. The Orlando Magic have talent, which is why this season's been so disappointing. The Pistons should have at least won game 1. It's also concerning from a historical perspective in that the Detroit Pistons have not won a home playoff game since 2008. That's a true stat. They have lost 11 consecutive home playoff games, which is remarkable. So basically, the last playoff games at the Palace of Auburn Hills, and then all of the playoff games at, what was it called, Little Caesars Arena, where they play now, the Pistons don't win home playoff games. Even last year, their 2 playoff wins came at Madison Square Garden. None at home. They'll fix that in this series. It's more the long-term concern. Again, I still think the Pistons are going to beat the Magic. Now it feels like it's more of a 6-game series. I had them in 5. But even if they get past Orlando, first of all, the fact that we're even saying if the 1 seed gets past the 8 seed is a concern right there. But I said about Detroit, listen, they've had a great season, 62 wins, and Bickerstaff is a legit candidate for Coach of the Year. I would give it to Missoula, but if they give it to Bickerstaff, no issues here. I'm a huge Cade Cunningham fan. I love what he's done this season. Jalen Duren, all of it. But this Pistons team, and I said it for months, reminded me a lot of last year's Rockets team. Talented, great defensively. Rockets were the 2 seed last year in the West. Pistons the 1 seed in the East. And outside of their best player, which last year was Şengün, again, Şengün's very different from Cade stylistically, but outside of Şengün sometimes, and outside of Cade with the Pistons now, they don't have anybody they can trust to get their own shot consistently. Like, they don't. And it's backed up, by the way, in the stats. Cade was great. Cade had 39 points last night against Orlando. 39, 13 to 27 from the field, 3 of 8 from 3, 10 of 11 from the free throw line. The other 4 starters combined had 3 more points than Cade Cunningham did. So Cade Cunningham is 13 and 27 with 39 points. The other 4 starters had 42 points on 14 of 34 shooting, so a little less efficient. 4 of 13 from 3, 10 of 13 from the free throw line. Duncan Robinson is a catch-and-shoot guy. Like Asor Thompson, great defender, not someone who can get his own shot consistently. Same with Jalen Duren, who's had a great season. He would get my vote for most improved player. Respecting Nickeil Alexander-Walker, I would give it to Jalen Duren. But when Cade's off the floor, or when Cade isn't the focal point of the offense on any given trip down the floor, who's gonna make it happen for Detroit? So it's why I don't think I've said this officially, but I'll say it now. Boston's going to beat Philadelphia. I feel very, very confident the Knicks are going to beat the Hawks. That's the Eastern Conference Finals. Because the other second-round series out east, if we go chalk here, which I think is going to be the case, is going to be Detroit, who does not have a second shot creator outside of Cade, and the Cleveland Cavaliers, who do have other shot creators outside of Donovan Mitchell, but they had the most notorious playoff choker in the history of the NBA in James Harden. So that puts a pretty hard cap on where they're at right there. So whoever wins that series is dead on arrival against the Knicks or the Celtics. Like, I think that's a 5-game series. Honest to God, I think it's a 5-game series. Detroit's defense could keep it close. Cleveland's talent offensively could make it interesting maybe. The Knicks with their clutch scoring ability, with Brunson and company, and the Celtics just with their sheer dominance, just with championship pedigree with Tatum, Brown, and Derek White and company. That will be a gentleman's sweep. So watching that game last night, it's okay. It's wire to wire win. That's concerning. That hasn't ever happened with a 1 seed in their first playoff game. 11 straight home losses. Well, most of those losses didn't come with this set of Detroit Pistons. Now, last year's did, but not prior to 2025. It's that if Cade Cunningham is not the focal point, or if he's on the bench, who do you trust to get shots for themselves and others? That's another thing about Cade, too, is he's the primary shot creator for other guys on that team. Like, what do you average? I think 8, 9 assists this year. Like, Cade's a very good passer. Cade can run the offense. No one else really can. So watching Detroit, again, I don't think they play until Wednesday, so they've got time. Bickerstaff's got time to figure things out. Yeah, game 2 is on Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, and the Pistons are 9.5-point favorites. Again, anytime that a lower seed, a 7 or 8 seed, steals game 1, the higher seed usually blows the doors off them in game 2. So I think Detroit minus 9.5 is probably the safe bet. Magic are like, hey, we've got our split. We're good. See what we can do in near Disney World in games 3 and 4. But Detroit should win in blowout fashion. Detroit should win this series. I still think 5 was my prediction. I'll stick with that. I'll go down with the ship. It probably ends up being a 6-game series potentially. But it is a little concerning that it got to this point in the sense of you don't trust anyone in Detroit offensively outside of Cade. And I've been saying that all season. They've won 62 games. Hey, listen, they're a very talented basketball team. They're a great defensive team and well coached. But in the playoffs, sometimes, man, you just got to get a bucket. That's why the Rockets, who I compared this year's Pistons to, that's why they traded for Kevin Durant. The Rockets could have used Kevin Durant on Saturday night, right? You need those go-to scoring options. All right, and then before we get out of here, just a recap of some of the other game ones around the NBA. So Cavs beat the Raptors 126-113. I said Cavs in 6. It'd probably be closer to Cavs in 5. Scotty Barnes was fine. Nuggets and Timberwolves. I've heard a lot of folks say, man, the Timberwolves should be just scared out of their minds because Jokic, the stat line's good, but if you watch the game, Jokic outside the one circus shot didn't play that well by Jokic's standards, and they still won by double digits. Yes, I'm also of the mindset, yeah, but Ant didn't play that well either. I think Anthony Edwards was like 2 for 9 from 3, so I didn't think he played that great. And we all know about role players; they're better at home than on the road. Like I still think this is a 6-game series. It's a very fascinating one though. Because Detroit, I keep saying Detroit, Denver and Minnesota has been a very compelling rivalry over the last few years in the NBA. Knicks beat the Hawks, kind of pulled away in the fourth quarter, 113-102. Brunson was excellent again, and so was Cat. I'm not coming after this player. I want to make that clear. I'm coming after his fanboys. The people over the last year or so that pretended, because that's what it is, because it's just outright false, that the Warriors were sabotaging Kuminga's development, or that Kerr should have played Kuminga more minutes. I have always said, not only is Kuminga uber talented, uber athletic, by all accounts in Golden State, professional. He wasn't a problem in the locker room. And by the way, he could have been. You could have maybe given him that excuse, given the fact that, hey, I'm this talented. I was a lottery pick, and I'm not getting on the floor consistently. Why am I? Never a problem in the locker room. Good teammate. No, I got no issues with Kuminga. None. I have an issue with the people that act like he is just this supernova talent. He's a supernova athlete. Basketball-wise, a lot to be desired. It's a lot of turnovers. It's atrocious shot selection. We're 5 years in. He still hasn't developed a consistent 3. You saw him in that game against the Knicks the other night. Team got worse when he was on the floor. And he's still young. He could get better. He can develop. Good thing about Atlanta is they've got a lot of young talent led by Jalen Johnson. But the idea that this guy was the future in Golden State and they just shunned him is just ignoring the facts. Again, as I said during the Warriors segment, find one player that left Golden State that was better in their next destination than they were as a Warrior. You find it. That player doesn't exist. And so I hope Jonathan Kuminga is the outlet. I really, as I said, I am rooting for the kid. He was a good teammate in Golden State. He's a champion in 2022. Uber athletic, uber talented. I hope the kid has an excellent career. Honest to God, I do. I got really irritated, though, over time. Folks act like, oh, Kuminga's free. He's free from Steve Kerr. You see him the other night? Have you watched Kuminga in his career? 80% of the games, he doesn't really know what he's doing out there. He's really talented. He also doesn't really have a handle. Once he gets the paint and picks up his dribble, bad news happens for the offense. A lot of turnovers, shot selection, and he still hasn't developed a three. Like, that's just the reality. So, yeah, I will not even die of that hill. I think I'll live on that hill because anyone who's watched Kuminga over time knows that. Thunder blew out the Suns. No surprise there. Not just because they're much better than Phoenix, but because Phoenix... I feel like the schedule makers were a little bit unfair to whoever won that second playing game between, or I guess technically it was the third playing game, between the Suns and Warriors, because that game was played Eastern time, 10 o'clock p.m. on Friday. Game one at OKC, the defending champions in this monstrous defensive team, Sunday afternoon. Not even 48 hours apart between these two. And again, whether it was Phoenix or Golden State, they had to fly to OKC. So them doing what they did, and Shea shot a million free throws again. The foul baiting does kind of drive me insane. I've always said this about Shea. He's efficient. He's smart. He's a great point guard. He's a great scorer. You don't need to foul bait. It's bad for the game. It's atrocious to watch. It makes people dislike you, which is unfortunate because Shea's a great player and a great dude. So, and I hope the officials pick up on that in the postseason and officiate things differently, which they tend to do, by and large, which is a good thing. So we'll see. So OKC blew out the Suns, and we already talked about the Magic and Pistons and the Spurs and Trailblazers. As for tonight, Raptors-Cavs game 2 has already begun, I guess. Cavs are up by 3. We're 2 minutes in, so long way to go there. Hawks and Knicks game 2 tips off in less than an hour. The Knicks are 6.5-point favorites. I think New York wins game 2. And then T-Wolves Nuggets tonight at 10:30 Eastern. The Nuggets are on a 7.5-point favor. I'm going to take Minnesota plus 7.5, Denver to win game 2 and go up 2-0. But then I could see Minnesota going back home and evening the series up at 2 games apiece. Again, I just think listen, we didn't, Minnesota's GM come from Denver. He basically put the Denver team together and then left before the Nuggets won the championship, went to Minnesota. Like, matchup-wise, it works. It's the key for Minnesota is Anthony Edwards at some point in this series going to be healthy enough to look like prime Ant. Because if he is, I don't think they'll beat Denver. I don't think they could beat this Nuggets team 4 straight times. This Nuggets team won 13 games in a row going back to the regular season. I think it's going to be 14 in a row after tonight, but I think it's a close one. But matchup-wise, Minnesota's got some, obviously the bigs with Gobert that they can throw at him. So I think this is going to be a longer series than people expect. So there you go. And then as for tomorrow night, we'll be back on Wednesday. Tomorrow night, you got Sixers Celtics game 2. I think Boston wins another blowout. Trailblazers Spurs game 2. I think the Spurs win. It's 11.5. Yeah, I'll say San Antonio covers and Wemby has another huge game. Rockets Lakers game 2 in LA. The Rockets are 4.5-point favorites. KD should be back. Assuming KD's back, I will go with the Rockets to win and cover to even that series up before it goes back to Houston. And then we'll be back on Wednesday to talk about a bunch of those playoff games, to talk mock draft 5.0, which is the final mock draft before the real thing kicks off on Thursday, which once again, check it out Thursday night, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. NFL draft live coverage on the Grid Network. We'll be live on YouTube, on X, probably on Twitch as well. So stay tuned for all that. Hopefully Instagram. So very, very excited, live on the Grid Network. Probably could be on other guys' platforms as well. So it's going to be a blast. Night 1 and night 2 of the NFL draft will be live on the Grid Network. So check out our coverage of that. Myself, Mike Guido, hopefully EJ Savage will be a part of that as well. Both those gentlemen are fantastic. Get some guests on throughout. It'll be a blast. So with that, that is all the time we have for today's show. Thanks everybody for stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube, as well as on Facebook, Twitch, X, and on Instagram. Again, this is one of my favorite weeks of the year. Playoffs have started. NFL drafts coming up. It's as the Harbaugh brothers say, who's got it better than us? Nobody. Very, very excited about all of it. Hope everybody has a great week. We'll see you on Wednesday. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. And Aaron, you better not sign before the draft. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.